and that Biggie wasn't the target.
Yeah, right. That's exactly. That Puffy was the target.
Right.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
And those are valid. I think those aren't just theories. I mean, I think those are valid. They're not based on numbers.
Right. Yeah. Let me ask you something. You mentioned the white Cadillac. Do you think that the white Cadillac that held the people that killed Tupac, probably from what I've read, Davion Brooks, Orlando Anderson, Darnell Brim, and Bobby Finch.
And three of them are dead. Only one is living.
I think it's. I know that Finch got killed. Anderson, of course, got killed. Brooks.
One of the two. There's only one who's alive.
Yeah, Brooks.
And then the Orlando Anderson thing. I mean, I was told absolutely had nothing to do with it, and then I was told off the record, some time ago that it absolutely was retaliation for Tupac's murder, that he got killed near that car wash.
When Orlando Anderson got killed, he left with a guy named Michael Redoro, and they went to the car wash to pay some debt that they had owed to him by Michael Stone, I think.
Yeah, but I was told by a cop it was a setup.
Wow.
It was a shootout. They call those twofers, right? 2 for 1.
Well, why would they wait almost 2 years, though?
It was 18 months. Oh, I mean, street justice. I mean, just opportunity, I think. But the week after Tupac was killed, or rather shot, there were were there 11 shootings?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all in Compton, and there are lots of theories on Orlando, but I was told by one cop that it was a setup, and the cops they're doing what we do. They're just trying to figure it out. So it doesn't mean that they say that it's accurate. You know that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. They're not the end all.
Yeah, right. Now, you mentioned in Tupac assassination, you said that you believe that Orlando Anderson looked like he was planted there. What do you mean by that?
Planted at
the MGM.
The interesting thing about this case is if you go from that day, just that day, from the morning when Tupac leaves Calabasas and he drives up with Cadata to Las Vegas, and he checks in at the Luxor, and then he goes off on his own with his buddies, and nobody can find him, and he's off gambling. And they have some silly meeting, and then everybody else just sort of scatters to the four winds. And the bodyguards can't find him, and Frank Alexander was panicked out because he couldn't find him.
Right. Yeah.
He finds him sitting at a casino. So they all end up going and getting, he picks up his tickets, and then he waits with Frank and a couple of other people for Shib to show up. And Shib, they're waiting and waiting, and they've got his tickets at will call. So they go in and they sit down, and Shib joins them later, a few minutes later, and then it only is, 109 seconds, 109 seconds, I think, was the fight. And then they leave, and boom, they run in. It's very close to the lobby if you've been to the MGM. And that whole sort of elevator bank, kind of a circle, is where it happened. And it's like, hey, let's go get him and beat him up or something. And it was, it's just childish stuff. Whether it's related or not, we'll never know. He had not been at the fight.
On fight nights in Vegas, of all places, people show up to there not necessarily for the actual fight itself, but for the parties after. So if Orlando Anderson said that, it's like here in Detroit, we had the Super Bowl here just 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, 2006. Yeah. And people from out of state came, and then, I'd talk to them downtown, and they'd say, I'm here for the Super Bowl. And then I said, you got tickets? And they said, oh, no, I'm here for the parties. So when Orlando Anderson told the cops that he was there for the fight, but he didn't literally go to the fight, couldn't he just have been meaning, like, hey, it's Vegas, it's a fight weekend?
Sure. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that could have been it. The interesting thing was Orlando was alone. At least he appeared to be alone.
Orlando Anderson was in the biggest lobby of the biggest hotel in Vegas after the biggest fight of the year in one of the biggest, busiest cities in the United States. And besides David Keith, one of a Crip, he worked at the MGM. And that's someone Orlando Anderson knew. David Keith, he lived at on Haveling Street, which was on a duffel bag in a house that they use as weapons storage with Orlando Anderson's cousin. So doesn't it all kind of link up to the Crips?
Yeah,
nothing but the Crips?
Yeah, he was never ID'd. He was, what Frank Alexander said was there was an arm that came out, and the arm was that of a black man.
Yeah, right. Why didn't...
But they never ID'd Orlando as the person. There was a Glock at Orlando's house, and and supposedly a Cadillac, but the police supposedly ruled all that out.
Yeah.
They did not confiscate the gun.
Yeah, right. I was just about to ask you about the Cadillac that Jerry Bonds supposedly drove into an auto repair shop.
Exactly. And there was also, Vegas police, the most interesting thing is, not the most, but another interesting thing is that the Crips members stayed at Treasure Island. And this is the thing that Biggie Small's mother has been trying to get to, Valletta Wallace, because, she's of course insulted that they've accused her son of doing something when he wasn't even in town, and
right.
You don't pay that kind of money to have somebody killed anyway. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Bob didn't even do it for that. So
was Treasure Island really a Crips hangout?
Well, what they didn't do was they didn't pull the video from the parking lot to see if there was a white Cadillac that went in and out of at Treasure Island.
Ah, yes.
They've got cameras. I mean, you look up, you can see them all over those parking structures.
So
they would have had going in and out. They would have had a white Cadillac. They didn't pull that stuff.
This may be kind of a controversial question since you live in the actual city, but do you think if the Compton police would have taken over the investigation, they would have solved it probably within about a month?
Well, they tried when it wasn't their jurisdiction, so they couldn't take it over. It didn't happen in their town. They could have, and they came to town, and the Vegas police went to Compton, and they tried to help. I interviewed both those guys, the lead investigators, Tim, and and the one who wrote the affidavit, which that's probably
Tim Brennan.
Yeah. And it's probably most untruth. There were shell casings, and that was what was found in Orlando Anderson's house. He's also got an uncle.
Oh yeah, Jerry Bonds. Let me ask you something. You mentioned, you just brought up a good point. The October raid, back in '96,
and they were there for it. LAPD.
Yeah.
I mean, the Metro Police were there for it.
Why didn't they do anything?
They just let him go. Compton Police had him, got him. They thought they had evidence. They found a Glock gun.
Yeah, right.
They claimed that in Orlando's house, that Orlando said he didn't live there, but it was his bedroom. I mean, his high school diploma was hanging on the wall. Right. And they said that the ballistics on it were, that they were inconclusive. And so, I mean, that's an easy way out, too. I don't know. I don't know why they didn't want to arrest him. They didn't pursue him as a suspect, and but yet Compton Police thought it was him.
You're familiar with Wayne Peterson, the lieutenant of homicide, or former lieutenant of homicide for Las Vegas? Now, Wayne Peterson said in a famous interview, he said, "We believe we know who's responsible for this." And then he said, "The problem we're having with this case is we don't have anyone willing to come forward."
Yeah, they blamed the witnesses, and then they also blamed and another and this was really a jaw dropper when I was told it. I was told it by Sergeant Manning, and I was told it by Lieutenant Peterson, that the victim's dead, obviously, and Suge wanted they did finally talk to Suge, and he didn't say anything. He wouldn't cooperate. You do not have to have victims in a murder case cooperate. You don't have to have witnesses cooperate. They're called unfriendly witnesses.
When
Peterson, they do it all the time.
When Peterson said, "We believe we know who's responsible for this," obviously he didn't say who, but he did indicate in that same interview he described Suge Knight as a victim, and not as the person who was behind it.
Yeah, they didn't believe Suge had anything to do with it.
I was just about to ask you that.
Yeah, I talked to Wayne at length. I mean, my sense from him was the person he says we think we know who did it was Crips members.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
Same thing with Manning. Manning didn't think that Suge Knight did it either.
No, I never did.
Well, Brad Becker doesn't think that Suge Knight killed him either.
I just talked to Brad. I saw him at the airport. I had a book signing.
What does he think?
Oh, that's what's coming out in my 3rd edition. It's a brand new stuff.
Does he think that Suge Knight did it?
No.
He doesn't?
Saw Suge. He said Suge came through the